Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, based on wherever you are located. Welcome to the webinar on all about SharePoint for legal teams in 2025. Right? You may call me pretentious for inviting you all to a 30-minute webinar and calling it all about SharePoint. That's definitely not doable, for us to go about speaking about everything that's possible with SharePoint, especially, when it comes to serving the needs and requirements of the legal department. But then in my defense, let me tell you, that's definitely going to be more parts to the series where we'll try to learn and familiarize, with the endless list of SharePoint capabilities. But, we just had to start somewhere. So this is the first baby step in that direction. So thank you for joining in. Appreciate you all taking the time out. My name is Sreeram, and I'm with Dock 365, and I'm your host for today. Just to give you a bit of an overview about the organization I represent, Doc 365. So Doc 365 is a Microsoft partner working with different organizations across the US and Canadian markets right now. And we've also been serving a few customers outside North America. But then, we are primarily based in the US. So we are headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida. So we are a Microsoft partner working with businesses, helping them leverage Microsoft tools and platforms for their, productivity and operational efficiencies, making better use of their investments that they've already made around Microsoft technologies. And then the most, basic being the Microsoft 365, or as it's more popularly known as the Office 365 suite, that has a whole load of productivity tools that you're already familiar with, such as your Outlook, your Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Teams, SharePoint, and so on and so forth. So we've been around for over 2 decades now, and we work with organizations of all sizes, small, medium, large enterprises. And then one of the core offerings from Dock is our contract management solution, also known as Dock 365, which is built off of Microsoft 365, especially SharePoint, which is why, we're so excited to always speak about SharePoint and the endless possibilities that SharePoint can bring to, different processes or departments within organizations. And in this instance, for this webinar here, the legal department. So the agenda I had for today, was to really touch upon some of these avenues, which is to acknowledge some of the challenges that organizations face when it comes to, contract management. And then, we could speak about how you could leverage SharePoint for your contract processes. And then, we're also going to speak a bit about the platform that we offer, which is the Doc 365 contracts management software, which is built on SharePoint, leveraging SharePoint capabilities. And if time permits, I would be happy to give you a quick tour. But then let me request you to go ahead and check out our website, www.mydoc365.com. So you would have access to all of our resources. You can also access our previous webinars where we've spoken about SharePoint and how we've leveraged SharePoint to build Doc that completely takes care of your entire contracts lifecycle management. And then if you are interested in a personalized demo, you could book a demo, and we would be happy to have a more detailed demo specifically done for you, catering to your specific needs and requirements. All right. So the challenges that legal teams face today, I'm sure, since you're attending this demo today, I'm sure you have something to do with legal or your contracts processes within your organization. So I'm sure I don't have to go ahead and tell you. It's not a eureka moment for you, for me to go ahead and tell you these are the challenges that you're facing. You're already aware of them. But then we work with hundreds of organizations, and I personally get to speak to about 5 to 7 businesses on a weekly basis. And if I were to consolidate, make a list of all the different challenges that these organizations are trying to fix and are looking for a solution to fix those challenges, the list is endless. But then, some of these challenges that you see on the screen are the ones that typically stand out. So these are the ones that, all of these organizations have in common. So it starts with, the disorganized contract storage and lack of accessibility. So what does that mean? So we have organizations. I mean, even if it's interesting to note that, there are even larger organizations that face this challenge, especially when, the contract processes completely decentralized. So, different folks from different departments have access to their contracts that they either have with their clients or, with their vendors. So it could be a IT head having access to the IT contracts that he has with his IT services vendors. So it's all disorganized and decentralized. Some of these contracts are lying around in personal inbox in their emails. Some of them, store them on their local folders. Not everybody who actually needs to have access to these contracts actually have access to these contracts. So whenever something happens, and it's at that point, people really reach out to different folks within, different departments and ask, hey, do you have access to this contract? I can't seem to find it. And that's when they realize that, accessibility is a huge issue. And then not having access to these contracts leads to, difficulty in tracking your contract life cycles and deadlines. So, we've had a lot of, leaders reach out to us saying, they lost a lot of, I mean, because of the lack of visibility into the contract expiries or renewals. I mean, they didn't manage to renew a client contract in time or cancel a vendor contract in time, ending up in losing thousands of dollars in that process. And of course, when there is no process in place, it obviously increases the load that you have personally. So it adds to that extra legwork where you have to, go ahead and reach out to multiple people and then be able to, access those documents and then go about managing the life cycle of the process, which adds to the manual, inefficiencies that come about. And of course, the compliance risks, which, I need not tell you about. So what happens if you miss out on certain obligations that you have signed with the other party? And then a few of them reach out. I mean, they have a good process in place. They've been using good tools, decent enough tools to manage the contracts. But then some of these tools, they don't speak to each other. I mean, they would obviously need their contract solution to speak to third-party applications such as the financing softwares, the accounting softwares, or the sales applications, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the challenges that typically stand out, especially when we work with some of these organizations. It's not based on a Gartner report. It's not based on an industry analysis. It's purely based on our personal experience and what we hear on a regular basis from our customers. And speaking of the impact of these challenges, I mean, we already spoke about these in the previous slide when we discussed the challenges. So missed deadlines leading to penalties, increased risks of non-compliances when it comes to your contracts, your obligations, wasted time and resources on manual processes, and difficulty scaling operations. So let's say if today you have difficulty managing 50 or 100 odd contracts imagine what happens when your sales, brings in 100 another sales contracts, client contracts, or your vendor or your procurement team adding 10 another vendors to the ecosystem. So it only gets worse as it scales up. So these are some of the challenges that most organizations have to grapple with. Now, coming to the topic for today's webinar, which is how SharePoint can be a game changer for legal teams. Now, I need not speak about or introduce SharePoint. Obviously, you all know SharePoint as a Microsoft product, which was primarily offered as a document management platform where you can, go ahead and store all of your important documents, be able to, collaborate with multiple folks within the organizations on those documents. And then, Microsoft kept on adding new features and capabilities to the core functionalities. So, you get to leverage advanced capabilities such as, keeping track of your metadata within these documents, or, having some workflows in place to go about with the different stages that these contracts would, or these documents would evolve from, right from, when you create that initial draft all the way till you have the final executed contract. So, managing those workflows, managing different versions that get generated in the process. So SharePoint could be an answer to most of these challenges that you generally face when it comes to managing the contracts. So it also gives you secured access, because this is inside of SharePoint. I mean, if you're storing all of your contract or your documents inside of SharePoint, and which is going to reside inside of your Microsoft tenant, so you have complete control and access over all of your data. And then when it comes to security, it automatically adopts all of the different security or compliance policies that you may have set for your Microsoft 365 resources. So everything is secured, and then you have complete control over all of your data. Now, let me just show you. I mean, there could be, from the attendees that we have today, there could be a few, that are currently storing these contracts on your local folders, or there could be some, that are already using SharePoint, or there could be some, who are already using some kind of a robust third-party contracts lifecycle management software. But then just to help the ones that have not yet used SharePoint to, store or manage the contracts process. So let's start with the very basic step of how you could, start using SharePoint to, go ahead and store and manage and track all of your contracts. So if you are already on Microsoft 365, so you would obviously have access to SharePoint too with your M365 subscription. So here's what you can do. I mean, if you can just open a browser where you're currently logged in with your Microsoft credentials. So you could just go to portal.office.com. Then just go to the menu and look for SharePoint. I mean, if you don't see it in this bundle here, you could obviously search for SharePoint, and then just click on the icon, and it takes you to your SharePoint environment. So let's just go ahead and look at how you could start creating a site, a SharePoint site, where you could go about storing all of your contracts in there. Now, this would prompt you to select between a team site or a communication site. Now, deciding between team site and a communication site is a completely different topic. So if we were to, assess or compare between what you should pick from, I mean, it's probably a topic for a completely new session. But then for this instance, let's just go ahead and select a communication site. Now, this would give you different options in terms of what template you may want to choose. So you can just start with a blank template here. Put in a name for the site. So let's call it contracts 2025. You could put in a description. I mean, if you were to share access to other users from your organization, you could put in a site description as to what you intend the site to cater to. And then this would show you a site address that typically takes your organization's domain name .sharepoint.com and then uses the name that you gave to the site. So this is going to be the site address. Click on next, select a language. So we're going to choose English here and create site. Takes less than a minute for you to set up your new SharePoint site for your contracts. Once you're here, you can start uploading all of your contracts. So let's say you have your local folder that houses all of your fully executed contracts. So let's start there. Let's start with storing all of your fully executed contracts and go ahead and track those contracts. So here you can go ahead and create a new document library. So document library is nothing but a collection of different folders and files. So you can it could be a folder that houses several other folders, to put it simply. So you just go ahead and create a document library. So you created a site, and then within the site, you're creating a document library. Now you could go ahead and start with a blank library, put a name here. Let's call it contracts again, or whatever name you may want to give it at this point, and then go ahead and create that document library. It says library already exists. So you have a blank document library here. So this could, be your repository or your folder where you can go ahead, and upload all of your contracts, the fully executed one to start off with. I mean, we could go about using templates. So, when you click on new, so it allows you to, upload a new Word document or start a new Excel workbook. It also allows you to add a template. So if you were to start using the site to create new contracts. So let's say you have a base template that you generally feed off of whenever it comes to creating a new contract. So you could also upload a template in here, which you can use to start creating new contracts whenever you're working with a new client or a vendor. I mean, if you really want to go ahead and create contracts of base templates, so this is where you can go ahead and add a template. So you can choose a template. So I'm just going to upload a template document for a master services licensing agreement. So you have that template here. So once you've uploaded the template, you would be able to see that here. So whenever you're creating a new document, so let's say you're working with a new client and you want to quickly go ahead and use the base template and then create a new document out of it. So you can really use that using these templates. Now let's not get there. I will save this for our upcoming series, but for this instance, let's just go ahead and upload or create a new folder, and then let's call it fully executed agreements. Once you've created a folder, you can start uploading all of the contracts that you want to go ahead and put it into this central repository here. So let's say if you have them inside of your local folders, so you can go ahead and upload them. So let's say these are some of the contracts that you want to go ahead and upload to the repository. So you just imported all of those existing contracts into this new folder. You may think, what's the difference? I have them on the local folder anyway. So what good is it going to do for me? If I were to, go through all of these steps, start creating new folders, create a document repository, add a folder, start uploading them here. Now, the first benefit is you could really give other individuals within your organization access to the site. So as you can see here, the site access. So it's not just you that's working on this repository. So you can also give additional users within the organization access to this. So you can also determine whether the new user that you're going to add to the site, should they have full control over the documents that you're going to give them access to, or do they only have read-only access and so on and so forth. So you can really choose. So let's say, for instance, if I were to select a colleague of mine and give him access, then here, I can really set whether I want to give him full control or just edit level permissions or just read-only permissions. And then put in a message and click on share. So he's invited to access the repository. So you can go about adding as many users from your organization's Active Directory. Now, once this is done, you can also use this as a tracker. So you could manage, as many different kinds of metadata associated with these contracts. So let's say you have a different Excel tracker. So you have all of your contracts in your local folder, and you have an Excel sheet or Excel spreadsheet, that looks at or keeps track of, metadata such as the contract expiry date and so on and so forth. So you could do away with those local spreadsheets and then instead start tracking the metadata within these contract documents through here. So you could just go ahead and add a new column. So it already shows me some default columns, such as the name of the contract, when was it modified, who was it modified by. And then if I want to go ahead and keep track of additional metadata, I can go ahead and start adding columns at my discretion. So it could be a text field, it could be a choice, it could be a multi-option drop-down kind of a column. It could be a simple date and time picker, and so on and so forth. So you could really go ahead and explore what kind of metadata you would want to track. So let me just show you one example. So one important metadata that you would always want to keep track of when it comes to managing your contracts is the date and time, right? So you want to go ahead and keep track of the expiry here. So you just pick on that column and click on next. So here you can go about creating that column. So you could call it anything. So let's go ahead and call it expiry date. So the type is date and time, and then you just go ahead and save. So it creates a new column. So you can go ahead and add as many columns. So you could have another column that could be a text field, and then let's call it whether this is a contract where you have auto renew on. So you want to choose between whether the contract would auto renew or not. So you could create another column there. You can save. So you could go about adding as many different columns here, depending on what kind of metadata you would want to track. And then once you're here, you just go to the grid view. So you can use this just like an Excel sheet, like you go about putting in punching in information inside of a tracker. So you could really do that here as well. So you just click on edit and grid view, and then go about putting in those dates. So let's say that the expiry date for this contract is the 13th of January 2026. And then the expiry date for this could be something else. You could go about putting in those dates as well. Now for your auto renew, you just do the same. So you know whether this contract would auto renew or not. So if it's an auto renew, so you could just simply call it yes. If it's not, you could just put in a text in there that says no. This could be yes. So I'm just filling this up randomly just to show you, what this could look like. Now, once you have all of your different columns, you can also track or set reminders based on these expiry dates. So, let's say you're currently, you know, creating a new entry on your calendar, on your Outlook calendar, saying, you create a reminder for yourself for the for the 13th of Jan 2026 to remind you that, a contract with so and so organization is going to expire. So instead of doing that, you can also set reminders, which you currently may not be able to do with your local spreadsheets. So here you could go about, just click on automate and you see an option that says set a reminder. Now, since we've got a column that says expiry date, it automatically pulls that up there. So you could go about selecting that. All of this automatically happens as long as you're, logged in with your Microsoft credentials. So just click on continue and you can say, how many days in advance I would like to be notified of the expiry. So let's say, I want to be notified 45 days in advance, before the contract expires. So I can just put in that number there and then click on create. Now, what this would do is it automatically creates a reminder flow based on the expiry dates I have for this contract. Now, at the set date and time, 45 days prior to the expiry date, I would receive a notification via email that would remind me that, a specific contract is set to expire that requires my attention. And that would also carry, hyperlinks in them, which would take you to the document here. So these are some basic things that you could start off. If you're still not using a full-blown CLM and are continuing to, managing your contracts inside of your local folders and for spreadsheets. So this is something that you can start off with, as a very basic step towards using SharePoint to manage your contracts. And I see we only have 2 more minutes for this webinar. I'll just quickly introduce you to Dock. So we have developed Dock, we've built Dock based off of SharePoint. So we've tried to, use SharePoint as a foundation and then, add more features and capabilities that you can, readily use if you were to, start using Dock for your contracts management. So it's completely built off of SharePoint. So you can log in with your existing Microsoft credentials once it's deployed inside of your SharePoint. So it's got a, customizable dashboard that takes care of all the important, performance indicators pertaining to your contract. So instead of, having to use the metadata tracker, so you obviously get, notifications and alerts on your expiring contracts or the ones that need your attention and so on. So you can bring all sorts of performance indicators into these dashboards. They're highly customizable. And the contracts is where you would see a centralized list of all the different contracts that you have within the organization. Again, you can really go about, setting access and permissions to different kinds of users based on, what user should have access to what different kinds of data or documents or contracts for that matter. It's easy to, search for or refine the list, based on different filter capabilities. And even after you, create a contract, once, let's say, if you've gone ahead and uploaded a contract, so you would be able to have access to those contracts under the Documents tab. We've brought in advanced workflow capabilities, so you do not have to, start building them off scratch. So it's really easy for you to, create or set up your own custom workflow templates that you may want to, send these contracts through for your internal approvals. It also allows for, integrations with platform providers, e-signature platform providers such as, DocuSign, Adobe Sign, and Certify. So we've got out-of-the-box integrations with these platforms. So you don't have to work in silos. So you get everything that you need typically within your contracts management, all catered to by the single platform. And the best thing about Dock is, it's going to be deployed inside of your Microsoft 365 tenant. And I mean, you have complete control and access over all of your data. And then you have a centralized repository where you can go ahead and manage the entire life cycle for your contract. So if you would like to see a more detailed demo of Dock, please head to our website, doc365 mydoc365.com, and you can go ahead and book a demo, and then we would be happy to show you a more detailed walkthrough of the product. But then I really hope there's at least some takeaway for you from this demo as to where you could start leveraging SharePoint to manage your contracts within your organization. I really thank you for your time today. There's definitely going to be more sessions on this topic, and then we'll keep you notified via email. And I'm really hoping I can see you again on future webinars where we can go about showcasing the different capabilities that you can start leveraging with your SharePoint. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.